one of the things I think is really important as we think about beginning to help other people and perhaps calling ourselves soul coaches is to not make it more than it is. Right. So sometimes we think, okay, well, I'm going to soul coach this person. And now we're thinking about all the techniques that maybe we've learned about, or that you've seen me apply, or maybe you've had sessions with each other. And, so we can go into the mind to try to create an experience. But the nice thing I feel about soul coaching sessions is the more that you let go of what it's supposed to look like and just allow yourself to show up as you are, and to encourage the person that you're helping to do the same, the more that it unfolds in a way that feels fresh, that feels sometimes surprising, that feels in many ways quite effortless. And that can really, I think, allow us to begin to trust this movement that is always bringing forward that which wants to be seen in the context of a conscious relationship of two people who are willingly coming together to explore a problem, a so-called problem, in a new way, in perhaps what we might call a more conscious way. So don't make it more than it is. There's really nothing to do in a soul coaching session. It's really just to be. And in this just being, often when we get together with someone for the purpose of exploring a particular issue that they have, when we first come together, we're not just being. We feel ourselves kind of maybe a little bit uptight. Maybe we feel nervous. Maybe we're afraid that, it's not going to go well, or that we're not going to know what to say. Maybe we're feeling the other person's feelings. So there could be a lot of stuff going on. So to be honest, one of the main reasons I start a soul coach session with a guided meditation, well, usually I start with, how are you? How are things? What do you want to look at today? So that's totally fine. And then moving into kind of a centering is so that I can give myself the time to open to myself. Maybe I've come from a busy day, or I've got some of my own things that are kind of simmering. So it gives me the opportunity to center myself and to get really present. And of course, simultaneously, as we follow our own experience into a greater sense of centering, the other person will feel that as well, and we'll tend to kind of drop together. And then from there, it's simply a question of being aware of what's arising, and also asking the other person what is arising for them, and encouraging them to open to their whole experience, noticing where they're resisting and finding the words to help them to gently and kindly and with curiosity open to the fullness of their experience. And that's really it. And within that, the person receives their own insights. It's not necessarily us that has to give them the insights, although that may happen too. But I guess what I'm saying is, some of you may have already practiced, or even maybe some of you are already formally doing this. And hopefully it's unfolding for you, and you're learning more about your own orientation to soul coaching, because it may not, and very likely will not be the same as the way that I approach it. And I always encourage people to use the tools that they already have, to to allow themselves the to open to the grace of the unfolding of their vocation as a soul coach with a sense of openness and with a sense of just availability to what it is that wants to blossom here. So whatever called us to learning about soul coaching and to entering into this almost year-long program, within that, there is a seed for whatever is going to unfold here. And some of us may never do formal soul coaching, but I pray that the subtle soul coaching and this exploration that we did around the mirroring of life, and how life is constantly showing us our light, is constantly showing us our shadow, and it's completely benevolent. It's completely benevolent. So we have never done anything wrong. Life wants our liberation even more than we're aware that we want it. And everything that comes to us is towards that end of putting us in touch with those qualities and that light within us that life is needing more of, so that we can be of service, and also to highlight those shadows, those areas where we've sort of maybe some of our lines of development have been stunted as a result of our experiences, and to discover where those might be and to literally to solve them in the light of our presence. It's actually quite simple, although I know it's not easy because we're bumping up against things that we've been resisting for a whole lifetime, if not many, many lifetimes, in the context of a culture that is resisting these things as well. So although it is simple, it's not necessarily easy, although it can be easy. It can be easy for sure. So, a soul coach practice has a life of its own. And more than anything, it's about listening to how what we've learned in the last year wants to express itself through us. So it's not so much about pushing it in a particular direction or thinking it needs to be a particular way, but just paying attention, relaxing and opening and paying attention to the impulses that might come forward. Perhaps we put it out there to some friends or people that we know, that were available for maybe some free sessions to start off. Or we meet someone one day at a gathering and something just says, ask this person if they'd like to experience soul coaching. You can sense their openness. You can also sense that they're suffering and that they might be ready for this approach. So, as always, there's no need to push this, and there's no need to have any particular idea of what it might look like. And we can also recognize that this soul coaching is something that can happen 24 hours a day in literally every interaction that we have. It's really, the word soul coach, it's not perfect, but I wanted to choose something that is different than a life coach, right? I don't know exactly how life coaches orient, but to me, this word soul is essentially acknowledging this radiance that lives inside of each one of us, this momentum that has brought us to this planet and to this earth at this time, that continues to guide us, but that gets hidden in the noise of our conditioning. So it acknowledges that everything that we need and the guidance, the roadmap is already here. And more than anything, it's about getting out of the way with our beliefs, with our resistance of our feelings, as we've talked about throughout all of these weeks. And then when we do that, as we experience over and over again, but it takes a long time to really, really trust it, is that when I land right in the middle of this moment, what I'm looking for is right here. So as I said last week, what I'm looking for is hidden in the midst of what I'm trying to get away from. And so when we're working with clients, or even when we're talking to a friend who's struggling, if we can let go of some degree of struggle, if we can open to the feelings and the energies that are showing up in the shared field, that impacts our friend. And right there, there's some soul coaching happening without words. Without words, just through our presence and the sense of openness that people can feel. One of the most beautiful, descriptions of what a soul coach does, I read, actually, it's on your homepage. It's a quote from Siddhartha, which is a book written by Hermann Hesse in about, I think, 1951 or so. And Siddhartha is a book about a young man. I believe he's in India, and his father is a priest, and he is being groomed to be a priest as well. But he has a very independent spirit, and he wants to learn about spirituality in his own way. He doesn't want to follow in the footsteps of his father. And so he leaves home and he becomes a, oh my goodness, what's the word for that? Basically one of those traveling monks who gives everything up. Like literally they have one pair of clothes, they have no food, one pair of clothes, one set of clothes, no food. Basically all their food is coming through just what strangers offer them. No shoes, and they just walk and explore life from that perspective. And at some point, he hears about this great teacher, and it turns out that this great teacher is the Buddha. And so he sits with the Buddha for a while and learns from his teachings, but even there feels like he wants to break free of that. Feels like he doesn't want to, although so many are putting on the orange robes after they hear, this is what, the Buddhist practitioners wear. After they hear the Buddha speak, they want to become one of his followers. But Siddhartha does not feel drawn to this, even though he can feel the truth in what the Buddha is speaking about. He really feels like there's no choice but to follow his own path. That's what feels like truth for him, right? So he ends up going to a city, a larger kind of place that's more populated. And as he's walking in his beggar's clothes and his long hair and his beard and all of that, he sees this woman that's being carried. How people in those days will be carried by 4 servants in this kind of in a carriage. And he just gets a glimpse of her, and he sees her look at him as well. And he falls in love. And I mean, she doesn't seem to respond at all to him, although later on we find that there's something that sparks for her as well. There's obviously some kind of soul recognition and a kind of an attraction that perhaps has been decided upon long before the souls came into physical body. Anyways, he realizes that in order to meet this woman and for her to give him the time of day, he's going to have to cut his hair and get some money. And so he decides to let go of his life as a spiritual seeker and to become, and to trade that for the life of flesh, as they say in the book. And anyway, so he does become very wealthy, and he has a son with this woman. And And he also becomes very, very miserable to the point where he just wants to kill himself. And so one day he just leaves it all the riches and everything. And he ends up by a river and has this kind of profound experience. He's actually thinking of, I hope you don't plan on reading the book. There's a lot of spoiler alerts here. So anyways, he's planning on drowning himself, and he hears a sound coming from the river. And somehow that sound brings him back to the voice of his own soul. And so this longing to discover what life really is gets reawakened, and he finds this. He connects with this man actually that he had met long ago, who is basically, what do they call him? But he helps people to cross the river. Essentially, he builds a boat and takes care of this boat and just helps people to cross from one side to the next of the river, and that's his work. But he's also very awake, this guy. So the guy that's helping people to cross the river, his name is Vasudeva, and he becomes a very profound teacher for Siddhartha. But he says that he learned more from the river than Vasudeva could teach him. And Vasudeva said that the river was his teacher as well. And this is the quote that's in your on your homepage. He learned from it continually. So he learned from the river continually. Above all, he learned from it how to listen with a still heart, with a waiting, open soul, without passion, without desire, without judgment, without opinions. And when I read this, I thought, that's it. That's the definition of what a soul coach does. He learned from the river continually. Above all, he learned from it how to listen with a still heart, with a waiting, open soul, without passion, without desire, without judgment, and without opinions. And of course, this learning doesn't happen overnight. It's not like, all of your opinions or judgments or passions or desires or wanting to control disappears overnight. But it's actually the process of working with someone, either subtly or formally, that shows us where we are trying to control, where the judgment is, where we're wanting something to be in a particular way. And so what I really love about soul coaching is that I get to continue my journey towards self-knowledge in the process of hopefully helping others. So it used to be that when we were caught by the spiritual bug, so to speak, when we were inspired to spend our lives exploring the spiritual life and what it is to live from soul or from our deepest self, it used to be that was considered to be impossible in the midst of daily life. And we'd have to spend at least some time away in an ashram or a monastery to dive deeper within ourselves, to kind of remove ourselves from our worldly responsibilities. And many would just stay there and become priests or monks or whatever. And I believe that nowadays we have this wonderful opportunity to do both, to live a life in culture and simultaneously discover who and what we really are in order to contribute in meaningful ways and to heal what it is that we've come here to heal within ourselves and collectively. And I think it's one of the things that I love most about soul coaching, that it doesn't seem to drain my energy in any way. If anything, if I come to a soul coaching session a little bit frazzled or somewhat drained or tired myself, I find that showing up with openness with someone, with just the sense of being equal, and this is just an exploration that we're doing together, I find that it fills me up. For me, I remember at one point in my journey just wishing I had more time to meditate. And every soul coach session to me is like a deep meditation practice. And so I'm very grateful that somehow I've been guided to this vocation that enables me to heal the way I so long to heal, to come back to my own quiet center, and also to live in the world, to have relationships with my family and my children and my grandchildren and my community, and to kind of have that ongoing balancing of the inner and the outer. And as we orient towards perhaps helping others through what we've been learning through soul coaching, it's really important to just be yourself and to start where you are, to not try to be any different than you are, to not try to be more proficient than you think you are. There is no proficiency when it comes to soul coaching. There's just showing up here as I am, as best I can. So it's important to let go of what we think a session should look like, and to allow ourselves the liberty to simply be ourselves. And in so doing, we give other people the liberty to be themselves. And this is what is being said in this quote. We're listening with a still heart, and even when the heart isn't still, we recognize that within that, if we don't fight with the heart that isn't still, we get put in touch with stillness. So if I'm finding that, my heart is struggling a little bit in the middle of a session or something, I just open to that. Okay, so the heart is struggling, the heart is tightening. Is that me? Is that them? Is that the shared field? Is that the collective field? We don't know. We never know. So all that's being asked is to be present in this moment as best we can. And in that, we begin to touch into the stillness. And through that, perhaps the words that need to be said begin to flow through us. There's kind of an intuitive sense of where to guide, what questions to ask. But we have to give ourselves the chance to practice and to miss the mark, which I do all the time, by the way. But even when we miss the mark, there's always going to be an opportunity in the next moment to hit the mark. So sometimes, when I'm doing a soul coaching session, I feel like maybe I ask a question that really doesn't kind of hit the nail on the head the way that I had hoped it would. But there's always the opportunity, actually, even within that answer that I get, we can sort of redirect, So I think mostly it's about practicing, and I'm still practicing all the time. And remembering also that when we do first start doing more formal soul coaching, that we will draw to us the people that we're wanting to learn from and who are wanting to learn from us. So, we may not think we're advanced enough or whatever, but life knows where you're at, and it will send you something that is going to meet you where you're at, so that you can evolve and develop as a soul coach. So keep that in mind. And also, maybe at first when you start a practice, you're only seeing one person a week or whatnot. And just trust that whatever is showing up is part of the way that your service to the world is developing and unfolding. So, um, you know, uh, I feel that every single one of you is ready to do formal soul coaching. But really, the question is, can you be gentle enough with yourself, and can you just allow yourself to be, and to open moment to moment through what is unfolding. What I might suggest in a practical way at the beginning is to make your sessions a little bit on the shorter side, so you don't feel like you're needing to fill too much space. So maybe 30 minutes is enough to start off with. And then you'll see as you work with it, whether you feel like you need more time.